excited. It's been a minute since I've liked a book. So, back to it. We learn that Adele's mom, not dead. She ran off with some man to Italy. Left her daughter at Mr. Rochester's doorstep. Do we know the paternity? We ain't got no paternity test. We don't know if that's his kid or not. But we know that he's taking care of her. Jane is more sympathetic to Adele now. You know, Mr. Rochester then shot somebody over this woman. This is just messy. Then, on top of that, almost got burnt alive. And now he's ordered Jane to not tell anybody about what happened. Continue. Too feverish to rest, I rose as soon as day dawned. Chapter 16. I both wished and feared to see Mr. Rochester on the day which followed the sleepless night. I'm hot. God, okay. I wanted to hear his voice again, yet feared to meet his eye. During the early part of the morning, I momentarily expected his coming. He was not in the frequent habit of entering the schoolroom, but he did step in for a few minutes sometimes, and I had the impression that he was sure to visit it that day. But I remember what happened. His ass. But the morning passed just as usual. Nothing happened to interrupt the quiet course of Adele's studies. Only soon after breakfast, I heard some bustle in the neighborhood of Mr. Rochester's chamber. Mrs. Fairfax's voice and Leah's and the cook's, that is John's wife, and even John's own gruff tones. There was exclamations of what a mercy master was not burnt in his bed. It is always dangerous to keep a candle lit at night. How providential that he had the presence of mind to think of the water jug. I wonder he waked nobody. It is to be hoped he will not take cold with sleeping on the library sofa, etc. So they just chatting about what happened. Too much confabulation, I'm gonna use that one. Too much confabulation succeeded. A sound of scrubbing and setting to rights. And when I passed the room and going downstairs to dinner, I saw through the open door that all was again restored to complete order. Only the bed was stripped of its hangings. Okay. Leah stood up in the window seat, rubbing the panes of glass dimmed with smoke. I was about to address her, for I wished to know what account had been given of the affair, but on advancing, I saw a second person in the chamber, a woman sitting on a chair by the bedside and sewing rings to new curtains. That woman was no other than Grace Poole. Okay. There she sat, stayed in taciturn looking as usual in her brown stuff gown, her check apron, white handkerchief, and cap. She was intent on her work, in which her whole thought seemed absorbed. On her hard forehead and in her commonplace features was nothing either of the paleness of desperation or one would have expected to see making the countenance of a woman who attempted murder. Yeah, she's sitting there like just knitting and sewing like nothing happened, because nothing happened, and whose intended victim had followed her last night to her lair. Yeah, now that I think about this, the excuse of Grace Poole doesn't make sense, but anyways. Okay, so she's just sitting there. She doesn't have the countenance of a woman who attempted murder and whose intended victim had followed her last night to her lair, and, as I believe, charged her with the crime she wished to perpetrate. I was amazed, confounded. She looked up while I still gazed at her. No start, no increase or failure of color beyond emotion, consciousness or guilt or fear of detection. She said, "Good morning, miss," in her usual phlegmatic and brief manner, and taking up another ring and more tape, went on with her sewing. I will put her to some test, thought I. I will put her to some test, thought I. Such absolute impenetrability is past comprehension. "Good morning, Grace," I said. "Has anything happened here? I thought I heard the servants all talking together a while ago." "Only master has been reading in his bed last night. He fell asleep with his candle lit and the curtains gone on fire, but fortunately he awoke before the bedclothes or the wood were caught, and contrived to quench the flame with the water in the ewer." "A strange affair," I said in a low tone. Then, looking at her fixedly, "Did Mr. Rochester wake anybody? Did no one hear him move?" She again raised her eyes to me, and this time there was something of consciousness in her expression. She seemed to examine me warily, then she answered, "The servants sleep so far off, you know, miss, they would not be likely to hear. Mrs. Fairfax's room and yours are nearest to the master's, but Mrs. Fairfax said she heard nothing. When people get elderly, they often sleep heavy." She paused and then added with such assumed indifference, but still in a marked and significant tone. But you are young, miss, and I should say a light sleeper. Perhaps you have heard a noise. Is this a subliminal conversation, or is this really just an innocent conversation? I don't know. I did, said I, dropping my voice so that Leah, who was still polishing the panes, could not hear me. And at first I thought it was Pilot, but Pilot cannot laugh, and I'm certain I heard a laugh, and a strange one. She took a new needle full of thread, waxed it carefully, threaded her needle with a steady hand, and then observed with perfect composure. It is hardly likely that master would laugh. I should think, miss, when he was in such danger, he must have been dreaming. I was not dreaming, I said, with some warmth, for her brazen coolness provoked me. She about to fight over her man. Jane about to fight over her man. Again, she looked at me with some scrutinizing and conscious eye. Have you told the master that you heard a laugh? She inquired. I've not had the opportunity of speaking to him this morning. You did not think of opening your door and looking into the gallery? She further asked. She appeared to be cross-questioning me, attempting to draw from me information unawares. The idea struck me that if she discovered I knew or suspected her guilt, she would be playing off some of her malignant pranks on me. I thought it advisable to be on guard. On the contrary, I said, I bolted my door. Then you're not in the habit of bolting your door every night before you go to bed? Fiend, she wants to know my habits, that she may lay her plans accordingly. Indignation again prevailed over prudence. I replied sharply, hitherto I've often omitted to fasten the bolt. I did not think it was necessary. I was not aware of danger or annoyance was to be dreaded at Thornfield Hall, but in the future, and I laid marked stress on the words, I shall take good care to make sure all... I messed it up. She said this pointedly and I didn't read it right. I messed it up. Let me go back. I was not aware of any danger or annoyance was to be dreaded at Thornfield Hall, but in the future, I shall take good care to make all secure before I venture to lie down. Because she said that with a point, and I had to put some respect on those words. Okay, it would be wise to do so, was her answer. This neighborhood is as quiet as any I know, and I never heard of the hall being attempted by robbers since I was in the house, though there are hundreds of pounds worth of plate in the plate closet, as is well known. And you see, for such a large house, there are very few servants because master has never lived here much. And when he does come, being a bachelor, he needs little waiting on. But I always think it's best to err on the safe side. A door is soon fastened. And it is as well to have a drawn bolt between one and any mischief that may be about. She's kind of warning her. A deal of people, miss, are far too trusting of Providence. But I say Providence will not dispense. Why am I not reading? I need to go back to it. I got this. I will say Providence will not dispense with the means, though he often blesses them when they are used discreetly. But I say Providence will not dispense with the means. And here she closes her something, a long one for her, and uttered with the demureness of a Quakerness. Sometimes I'll be thinking I got it, and then I don't. Anyways, Grace is saying lock your door. This a big house. They ain't got no servants here. There is no security. And ultimately, a lot can happen. Grace said lock your door. Grace is right, lock your door. Honestly, who doesn't lock their door at night? Even in your bedroom, your door should be locked, right? I still stood absolutely dumbfounded at what appeared to be her miraculous, almost inscrutable hypocrisy when the cook entered. Mrs. Poole, said she, addressing Grace, the servants' dinner will soon be ready. Will you come down? No, just put my pint of porter and a bit of pudding on the tray. I'll carry it upstairs. You'll have some meat? Just a morsel and a taste of cheese, that's all. She said, give me my wine. And this sago? Never mind it. At present, I shall be coming down before tea time. I'll make it myself. The cook here turned to me, saying that Mrs. Fairfax was waiting for me, so I departed. I hardly heard Mrs. Fairfax's account of the curtain conflagration during dinner. So much was I occupied in puzzling my brains over the enigma that was Grace Poole, and still more in pondering the problem of her position at Thornfield, and questioning why she had not been given into custody that morning, or at the very least dismissed from her master's service. Like, why is she still here? He had almost as much as declared his conviction of her criminality last night. What mysterious cause withheld him from accusing her? Why had he enjoined me to secrecy? It was strange. A bold, vindictive, and haughty gentleman seemed somehow in the power of one of the meanest of his dependents. So much in her power that even when she lifted her hand against his life, he dared not openly charge her with the attempt, much less punish her for it. Had Grace been young and handsome, I should have been tempted to think to think that tenderer feelings than prudence or fear influenced Mr. Rochester in her behalf. But hard favored and matronly as she was, the idea cannot be admitted. Dang. Yet, I reflected, she has been young once. Her youth would be contemporary with the master's. Mrs. Fairfax told me once she had lived here many years. I don't think she can ever be pretty, but for all I know, she may possess originality and strength of character to compensate for the want of personal advantages. So she thinking like, okay, maybe they had a fling going on. Like, gotta be, because what else reason? Ain't no way this woman just tried to kill you, and you dead I said, I think it was Grace who tried to burn me alive, and you still got this bitch in this house. Ain't no way. Jane should have known then. That's suspect. That's when she really should have started investigating, but she was too caught up in Mr. Rochester to ask the right questions. Because why is Grace here? Anyways. Mr. Rochester is an amateur of the decided and eccentric. Grace is eccentric at least. What if a former caprice, a freak very possible to a nature so sudden and headstrong as his, has delivered him into her power, and she now exercises over his actions a secret influence, the result of his own indiscretion, which he cannot shake off or dare disregard. So she think they got something funny going on. But having reached this point of conjecture, Mrs. Poole's square, flat figure and uncomely, dry, even coarse face recurred so distinctly to my mind's eye. No, ain't no way. Ain't no way they've been together. She thought of that lady face. She said, no, impossible. My supposition cannot be correct. Supposition cannot be correct. Yet, suggested the secret voice which talks to us in our hearts, you are not beautiful either, and perhaps Mr. Rochester approves you. At any rate, you have often felt as if he did, and last night, remember his words, remember his look, remember his voice. I well remembered all. Language, glance, and tone seemed at the moment vividly renewed. I was now in the schoolroom. Adele was drawing. I bent over her and directed her pencil. She looked up with a sort of start. French, said she. French. I'm hot, Adele. Oh, you know what? In the movie, I thought it was Mrs. Fairfax, but one of them at this scene comments on the fact that her face looks hot, like she's flustered, like her cheeks are red. I'm not going to look it up, but I'm pretty sure she says, you look, yes, I see rouge. Okay, yes, her cheeks are blushing. Got it. Okay, I'm hot, Adele, with stooping. She went on sketching, and then I went on thinking. Okay, got it. So she looks over Adele. Adele looks at her like, girl, why your face red? She blushing because she thinks about Mr. Rochester. I'm happy I watched the movies. Okay, I hastened to drive from my mind the hateful notion I had been conceiving respecting Grace Poole. It disgusted me. I compared myself with her, and I found we were different. Bessie Levin said I was quite a lady, and she spoke truth. I was a lady, but now I looked much better than I did when Bessie saw me. I had more color and more flesh, more life, more vivaciousness, because I had brighter hopes and keener enjoyments. Evening approaches, said I, and I looked towards the window. I've never heard Mr. Rochester's voice or step in the house today, but surely I shall see him before tonight. I feared the meeting in the morning. Now I desire it, because expectation has been so long baffled that it has grown impatient. When dusk actually closed, and when Adele left me to go play in the nursery with Sophie, I did most keenly desire it. I listened for the bell to ring below. I listened for Leah coming up with a message. I fancied sometimes I heard Mr. Rochester's own tread, and I turned to the door expecting him to open. The door remained shut. Darkness only came through the window. Still, it wasn't late. He often sent for me at 7 or 8 o'clock, and it was yet but 6. Surely I should not be wholly disappointed tonight when I had so many things to say to him. I wanted again to introduce the subject to Grace Poole and to hear what he would answer. I wanted to ask him plainly if he really believed it was she who made an attempt last night, and if so, why he kept her wickedness a secret. It little mattered whether my curiosity irritated him. I knew the pleasure of vexing and soothing him by turns. It was not my It was one I chiefly delighted in, and a sure instinct. This woman said, it didn't matter if I irritated him. I knew the pleasure of vexing and soothing him by turns. It was one I chiefly delighted in, and a sure instinct always prevented me from going too far. Beyond the verge of provocation, I never ventured. On the extreme brink, I liked well to try my skill. Janie nasty. Okay, restraining every minute restraining every minute form of respect, every propriety of my station, I could still meet him in an argument without fear of uneasy restraint. That suited both him and me. A tread creaked on the stairs at last. Leah made her appearance, but it was only to intimate that tea was ready in Mrs. Fairfax's room. Thither I repaired, glad to go downstairs, for that brought me, I imagine, near to Mr. Rochester's presence. You must want your tea, said the good lady, as I joined her. You ate so little at dinner, I'm afraid, she continued. You're not well today. You look flushed and feverish. Oh, quite well. I never felt better. Then you must prove it by showing a good appetite. Will you fill the teapot while I knit off this needle? I love that she's always knitting. Having completed her task, she rose and drew the blinds, which she had hitherto kept up by way, I suppose, of making the most of the daylight, though dusk was now fast deepening into total obscurity. It is fair tonight, she said, as she looked through the panes, though not starlit. Mr. Rochester has, on the whole, had a favorable day for his journey. Journey? Oh, you gonna leave without telling me? Okay. Is Mr. Rochester gone away? I didn't know he was out. Oh, he set off the moment he had breakfast. He's gone to the Leas, Mr. Eshton's place, 10 miles on the other side of Millcote. I believe there's quite a party assembled there. Lord Ingram, Sir George Lynn, Colonel Dent, and others. I never understood why Colonel was pronounced Colonel. There's no R there. No, nor tomorrow. Oh, wait, do you expect him back tonight? No, nor tomorrow either. I think he is very likely to stay a week or more. When these fine, fashionable people get together, they are so surrounded by elegance and gaiety, so well provided for, that they can please and entertain. When they can please and entertain, that they are in no hurry to separate. Honestly, that does sound fun. Gentlemen especially are often in request at such occasions, and Mr. Rochester is so talented and so lively in society that I believe he is a general favorite. The ladies are very fond of him, though you would not think his appearance calculated to recommend his particularity in their eyes. But I suppose his acquirements and abilities, perhaps his wealth and good blood, make amends for any little fault of looks. Okay, so it's generally spoken upon that he's not attractive. The movies did not do a good job, because Michael Fassbender, Magneto, is sexy as hell. That man is fine as hell. And then the one from the BBC version, the 2006 Mr. Rochester, is scrumptious. The only one who wasn't cute was that weird one that was in black and white, because he had that weird mustache. But the man I'm picturing, anyways. So it says, are there ladies at the Leas or wherever he's at? There are, there's Mrs. Eshton and her 3 daughters, very elegant young ladies indeed, and there are the Honorable Blanche and Mary Ingram, most beautiful women, I suppose. Indeed, I've seen Blanche 6 or 7 years since, when she was a girl of 18. She came here to a Christmas ball at a party that Mr. Rochester gave. You should have seen the dining room that day, how richly it was decorated, how brilliantly lit up. I should think that there were 50 ladies and gentlemen present, all of the first county families, and Miss Ingram was considered the belle of the evening. You say you saw her, Mrs. Fairfax? What's she like? Yes, I saw her. The dining room doors were thrown open, and it was Christmas time. The servants were allowed to assemble in the hall to hear some of the ladies sing and play. Mr. Rochester would have me come in, and I sat down in the quiet corner to watch them. I never saw a more splendid scene. The ladies were magnificently dressed, most of them, at least most of the younger ones, looked handsome, but Miss Ingram was certainly the queen. And what was she like? Exactly. You're not saying what she like. You just saying she looked cute. Okay. What's she like? She a bitch. Tall, fine, bust, sloping shoulders, long, graceful neck, olive complexion, dark and clear. Why they made her blonde in the movie? Dark and clear, noble features, eyes rather like Mr. Rochester's, large and black, and as brilliant of jewels, and she had fine head of hair, raven black. This is the complete opposite of the way they cast her. Oh, so he liked dark-haired women. Anyways, I'm sorry. And then she had such a fine head of hair, raven black, and so beautifully arranged. A crown of thick plaits behind her, and in front the longest, the glossiest curl I ever saw. She was dressed in pure white, an amber-colored scarf. Why she removed this lady? This lady outfit, damn. Okay, an amber-colored scarf was passed over her shoulder and along her breast, tied at the side, and descending in long French ends below her knee. She wore an amber-colored flower, too, in her hair. It contrasted well with the jetty mass of her curls. She was greatly admired, of course. Yes, indeed, and not only for her beauty, but for her accomplishments. She was one of the ladies who sang. A gentleman accompanied her on the piano. She and Mr. Rochester sang a duet. Mr. Rochester. Okay, and we're back. Okay, Mr. Rochester and Miss Ingram sang a song together at a Christmas party past. And yes, he has a fine bass voice and an excellent taste for music. And Miss Ingram, what sort of voice has she? A very rich and powerful one. She sang delightfully. It was a treat to listen to her. And she played afterwards. I'm no judge of music, but Mr. Rochester is, and I heard him say her execution was remarkably good. And this beautiful and accomplished lady, is she not yet married? It appears not. Jane jealous. It appears not. I fancy neither she nor her sisters have very large fortunes. Old Lord Ingram's estates were chiefly entailed, and the eldest son came in for everything almost. Blanche, I'm pretty sure is a bitch as we get into the book, but that does make me feel bad that first of all, why am I paying you to marry me? Anyways, I never understood it. Focus. I'm never gonna make it through the book. Okay. Lord Ingram. So the reason Blanche is not married is because she don't have money. She's wealthy, but she has no money. But I wonder no wealthy nobleman or gentleman has taken a fancy to her. Mr. Rochester, for instance. He is rich, is he not? Oh, yes. But you see, there's a considerable difference in age. Mr. Rochester is near 40, but she's 25. What of that? More unequal matches are made every day. True. Yet I should scarcely fancy Mr. Rochester would entertain an idea of the sort. But you eat nothing. You've scarcely tasted since you ain't eating. She ain't eating because she worried about Mr. Rochester being with that lady. No, I'm too thirsty to eat. Will you let me have another cup? I was about to revert to the probability of a union between Mr. Rochester and beautiful Blanche, but Adele came in and the conversation was turned into another channel. When alone once more, I reviewed the information I had got, looked into my heart, examined its thoughts and feelings, and endeavored to bring back with a strict hand such as had been straying through imagination's boundless and trackless waste into the safe fold of common sense. Okay, she's trying to get a grip. Okay. Memory having been given evidence of hopes, wishes, sentiments I had been cherishing since last night, of the general state of mind in which I indulged for nearly a fortnight past, reason having coming forward and told in her own quiet way, a plain, unvarnished table, showing how I had rejected the real and rabidly devoured the ideal, I pronounced judgment to this effect. That a greater fool than Jane Eyre had never breathed the breath of life, that a more fantastic idiot had never... Resuming. So, Jane is thinking about the past few weeks and feeling it. Okay. Says no greater fool than Jane Eyre had ever breathed the breath of life. No more fantastic an idiot had never faded herself on sweet lies and swallowed poison as if it were nectar. You, I said, a favorite of Mr. Rochester. You, gifted with the power of pleasing him. You, of importance in any way. Your folly sickens me, and you've derived pleasure from occasional tokens of preference, equivocal tokens shown by a gentleman of family and a man of the world to a dependent and a novice. How dare you, poor stupid dupe? Could not even self-interest make you wiser? You repeated to yourself this morning the brief scene of last night. Cover your face and be ashamed. He said something in praise of your eyes, did he? Blind puppy. Open the bleared lids and look on your own accused senselessness. It does good to no woman to be flattered by her superior. Life is so full circle. Life is... blind puppy. Oh, it does no good to a woman to be flattered by her superior who cannot possibly intend to marry her, and it is madness in all women to let a secret love kindle within them, which if returned and unknown must devour the life that feeds it, and if discovered and responded to must lead something into merry worlds whence there is no extrications. Yeah, okay. Listen then, Jane Eyre, to your sentence. Tomorrow, place the glass before you and draw in chalk your own picture faithfully, without softening one defect. Omit no harsh line, smooth away no displeasing irregularity. Write under it, portrait of a governess, disconnected, poor, and plain. It bothers me that she defers to her looks in this instance when she's like everything else. Because at the end of the day, beauty is going to fade. If you're going to love a person, you have to love... He said he loved your eyes. Your eyes are not going to change. Your personality, like the way you see the world, is not going to change. So it just bothers me that this is where her mind went. Because one, I guarantee she's not ugly. And two, it's just like... beauty is nice, but at the end of the day, it's of no consequence, right? I don't know. It's just whatever. Anyways, this is gonna start on the portrait. Afterwards, take a piece of smooth ivory. You have one prepared in your drawing box. Take your palette. Mix your freshest, finest, clearest tints. Choose your most delicate camel hair pencils. Delineate carefully the loveliest face you can imagine. Paint it in your softest shades and sweetest hues according to the description given by Mrs. Fairfax and Blanche Ingram. Remember the raven ringlets, the oriental eyes. What? You revert to Mr. Rochester as a model. Order. No snivel, no sentiment, no regret. I will endure only sense and resolution. Recall the august yet harmonious lineaments. What does August mean? I thought August was only a month. Recall the August yet harmonious harmonious lineaments, the Grecian neck and bust. Let the round and dazzling arms be visible in the delicate hand. Omit neither diamond ring nor gold bracelet. Portray faithfully the attire, aerial lace and glistening satin, graceful scarf and golden rose. Call it Blanche, an accomplished lady of rank. Whenever in the future you should chance to fancy Mr. Rochester thinks of you, take out these two pictures and compare them. That is psychological torture. Why would you do that to yourself? Damn, it's like people who like pop those rubber bands to stop thinking about somebody, but this is even worse. She's gonna paint the prettiest woman she can imagine and a picture of her in chalk. She's gonna take a chalk picture of her, and then she's gonna use her best other instruments to paint a picture of the other woman, and then compare them every single time that Mr. Rochester crosses her mind, just to put herself back in her place. And that is so fucked up. But anyways, I resume. Take these two pictures and compare them. Say Mr. Rochester might probably win that noble lady's love if he chooses to strive for it. It is likely he wouldn't waste a serious thought on this indignant and insignificant plebeian. I'll do it, I resolved, and having framed this determination, I grew calm and fell asleep. I kept my word. An hour or two sufficed to sketch my own portrait in crayons, and in less than a fortnight, she took 2 weeks to make Blanche. No balloons. She took 2 weeks to make Blanche. And she did 2 hours, an hour or two for herself. And I guarantee that it looked a lovely enough face. And when I compared with the real head in chalk, the contrast was as great as self-control could desire. Blanche's face was lovely enough, and when compared with the myself in chalk, the contrast was as great as self-control could desire. I derived benefit from the task. It kept my head and hands employed. It gave me force and fixedness on the new impressions I wished to stamp indelibly on my heart. Indelibly? Look that up. On my heart. Ere long, I had reason to congratulate myself on the course of wholesome discipline to which I thus forced my feelings to submit. Thanks to it, I was able to meet subsequent occurrences with the decent calm which, had they found me unappeared, I should probably have been unequal to maintain, even externally. Okay. She's so fucking practical. She's like, you know what? This did me well. This did me good. Not only did it occupy me for a couple of weeks and give me something to do, because this man has been away for several weeks with this woman. So, of course, she's thinking about him every single day. Every single day for over 2 weeks, I'm thinking about you and you're away. The last thing that happened between us was that I saved you from being burnt alive. You told me that it's the servant whom's still here, who I think is crazy, who I'm scared of. And then you leave to go away to a party for almost a month. Because I swear Fortnite is 2 weeks. So 2 weeks plus you're gone. And while you're gone, every single time I think about you, I take this ugly ass picture that I drew of myself. I'm saying it's ugly because it's probably not ugly. She's a good artist. But it's ugly because she didn't even try. She took 2 hours on her own picture. And then she took 2 weeks to paint Blanche. And then in the process, it was like, that's like torture. That's psychological torture. Can you imagine trying to perfect the most beautiful face just so that you could like compare it against yourself, or just for the sake of humbling yourself? That's actually psychological torture. I'm ignoring that. That's a little weird. Okay, that's the end of it. I'm just talking about it, but that's messed up. And she said, I should congratulate myself because I've been disciplined and I forced my feelings to submit. And honestly, congratulations. That is a hard thing to do. Okay, I'm not even reading anymore. I'm processing. Damn. She's so hardcore. Like, oh.